Hi, I'm Jeffrey Reese. I'm an instructional professor in the Humanities Collegiate Division. I teach all three quarters of reading some world literature, and my academic background is in religion and ethics.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Kenny. I teach in the Department of Germanic Studies. I am senior instructional professor in Norwegian, so I do teach Norwegian language, Scandinavian literature, and I teach in the humanities core.
Hi, I'm Sophie Salvo. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Germanic Studies, and I teach in the autumn and winter of readings and world literature.
I've been around a long time. Reading some world literature is ostensibly a taste of great books from all places and times around the world. Um, it is more concretely what it is about just a small selection of really great texts from times and places, and it is most of all about discovering and with fresh eyes what these books have to offer to all of us as readers.
Yep. No, I think that's smart. And also because some of these texts are familiar to our students, I think the idea of fresh eyes is important. And the idea that we're going to involve ourselves in discussion, to me, is the most important piece of it.
Yeah, I guess another way to put it is it's about discovering the books on their own terms instead of just assuming what we already know about the books. I do, Sophie.
We could also say that there are themes to the autumn and the
Yes,
winter
yes.
courses. So autumn is about epic, and winter is about autobiography. But I think in all of our sections, we don't really necessarily take for granted what that means. So it's not like you have to memorize this is a definition of epic and then apply it to Gilgamesh, but rather we think about what do these texts have in common. They're coming from different time periods, from different cultural traditions, but sort of what is uniting them? What do they have in common, and what are they trying to say to us today?
Yeah, I think the term epic is elastic in our imagining what epic is. All the sections read Gilgamesh and the Odyssey in the epic order, and then there are departures from there.
The Mahabharata.
And not everyone teaches the Mahabharata anymore. I know I love the Mahabharata. It's my favorite text of all. I don't know, I can't speak. Jeff, you have other texts that you offer?
I've taught the Mahabharata. I never can say it properly. I'm never sure
That's
I'm
probably
saying
why you
it
had to stop
properly.
teaching it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's mind blowing. And I've recycled it with other texts. I think for me what makes epic loosely is it's a foundational story. It's a story of foundations in some way. It's about establishing. It's about not just founding but refounding, continually founding, and why that's such an incredibly important idea historically, contemporaneously, literarily, culturally, and so forth.
I think all the texts in the winter and in the autumn are about, a variety of things, but maybe one question that's underlying them is how do I give my life meaning? And I think on the one hand, the answers that they come up with might seem very foreign to some of the students. Augustine ultimately decides to devote himself to a very specific form of Christianity, and that might not be the choice that we all would make today. But I think one thing I try to stress to the students in my classes is that these are questions that are still meaningful to us, and especially to people who are, in the early stages of adulthood, trying to decide what they want to do with their lives, what causes they want to devote themselves to.
Yeah, it's this question of what matters. I think that comes up also in the epic, whether it's in Gilgamesh or whether it's Odysseus finding his way home, what really matters. And then the more complicated issue of what matters maybe in the Mahabharata. But I do feel like that is the question that unites the stories. And to go back to this idea that some of the students are familiar with texts already and some are not, I love the way those discussants come together, some with their own ideas because they've already read it, and some who are totally fresh. And that discussion, I always come back to that. The discussion to me is the most important piece of it, about how we meet in class and how we talk about the texts, and how we, as you say, peel back layers, maybe toss away things that we think we knew and we don't really know, and discover new things. And that's possible when you have a group of 17 students in the room.
Yeah, I would just add about Gilgamesh. It's a great way to start the year because it's a book about everything. It's like the oldest book there is, and every problem human beings have ever kind of struggled with: economics, politics, political authority,
Mortality.
mortality, relations between the sexes, it's already dealing with it. It's environmental how to manage the environment, about relations between human and other animals. It's all there from the start.
Yeah, I think shout out to the ISAC too, that we're able to go there and see actual pieces of tablet that are part of Gilgamesh and to explore its origins. That's a big treat when we get to go there. And
the one thing that I really like about teaching in the winter, which is about autobiography, is I find that students are excited to think about this question of, who am I and how do I know who I am? And that's one thing that reading autobiographies, I think, allows, because you can start to see with the help of these different texts, whether it's Augustine or Rousseau, that actually the self is a constructed thing, right? That it's not a given. And I think that this, I guess back to your point of maybe pushing against the preconceived notions that we have, right? I think there's like a commonly held belief that we are transparent to ourselves, we know who we are, we can assert it and go out in the world. And I think one thing that is rewarding to see the students work through these texts is to realize, actually, no, I am a series of stories that I'm telling about myself. And that's required for everybody now is just, I think, Augustine Confessions, Seishonagon, the Pillow Book, and Wole Soyinka, Ake, The Years of Childhood. But then there's some others that kind of used to be required that a lot of people still teach, including parts of Rousseau. I don't know, we could say our various instructor choices.
Yeah,
and especially in the
one
autumn,
nice thing about the syllabus for RWL is that it's got very stable core components, and it's also got some flexible elements. So there's room to kind of build, expand, play around.
So you will have at least some reading in common with people in other sections of the same core or the same HUMA core, but it will depend on your instructor a little bit. So for example, in the winter, I always add, which is again about autobiography, we always read selections from Montaigne's essays because I love them. But I think I also tell the students that they have to love them, and most of them do by the end. But I think it has good advice about how to live, for example. And I don't know, what do you do in the winter, Jeff?
In the winter, we do Bechdel Fun Home, which it's a great way to and the quarter, and also it's great to expand genre and thinking about autobiography and add graphic, the graphic novel, and think about image and word and writing all together. And then we read Kafka's Letter to the Father, which I was hesitant to adopt, and I've discovered students respond to it very intensely. I guess unsurprisingly, because it's so intense. It's such an amazing short text.
I don't teach in the winter.
What do you do in the autumn?
I just do the three texts, the Gilgamesh and the Odyssey and the Mahabharata. I used to teach a fourth text, but the 9/8 quarter kind of cramped my style a little bit. I used to read a saga.
I do Paradise Lost in the autumn.
Oh, nice.
Which is maybe it's
along with the other three. Oh, you're ambitious.
Yeah, I just also love it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah, I get it.
Quarter. One of the great things about autumn quarter is that my sections we watch a film, and I think a lot of other sections now are also adopting film, which is a great way to end the quarter. And it's great to have it's great to have the mix of genres, but also film. It's a relief. It's a nice way to end the quarter, to have some change of genre, and in order to kind of be able to keep working and also thinking and also refresh.
Maybe one thing that might distinguish readings of world literature is the combination of canonical with newer texts, so that you do, on the one hand, get this grounding in, you read the Odyssey, for example, or Gilgamesh, which I think is, rewarding and important, but then you also read Fun Home, which is maybe canonical now as well, or people, do really contemporary literature, I think especially as instructor's choice in the winter. So you see that these genres are like living, breathing, changing things. One thing I wanted to say that I forgot when we were talking more generally is that a lot of these texts are ancient, or at least very old. Like I just mentioned Montaigne, that's 16th century. But one thing I think that the students really respond to is to think about, actually, how they are involved or invested in modes of presenting themselves day to day. I mean, that's all of social media. We usually have at least one class discussion about, what does self-construction, self-presentation look like on Instagram or TikTok or whatever platform that I don't even know about that they're using these days. And I think it's sort of surprising to them to think about. On the one hand, it's totally new and it's a complete, change in how we communicate. But on the other hand, they're kind of continuing certain practices that have been going on for millennia of presenting yourself, fashioning yourself, and as a way also to understand who you are.
I think I get two reactions. One is this built really well on what we did in my high school in terms of reading and writing and special projects about the text. So that if you were lucky enough to go to high school where this was a priority, then you're just building on something that the foundation was already there. But I prefer students who come to me at the end, and there are always several each quarter who say, we didn't do anything like this before. This is brand new for me, and I'm a commonly math major, and it's never been a priority, but thank you so much for letting us read these texts and talk about them in a way that I never had the opportunity to do before. And I think, to me, that's the best way to think about it. People getting opportunities to read and discuss that never really had them.